Now that you've got some programming experience, it's time to move on to movement.
The last step of building your robot was to use wires to connect the motors on your robot to the NXT motor ports.
Take a minute right now and just look over your robot and the instruction page again and make sure that you follow the directions and plug the wires into motor ports B and C as shown. If you have used a different robot directions, then just check to make sure your wires are okay. Soon you won't have to do this anymore, but just for now, please quit from the software on your laptop and turn off your NXT. Okay, so start up your software and we're gonna write a new program, and this program we're gonna call First Dance. And I'll say go. And what we're gonna do is we are going to make our robot move. So we're gonna grab a move brick, of course, drag that down. And we want to start by going forward one rotation of the wheel. So if you look at the configuration panel down here, my direction is selected to be forward, and my duration is selected to be one rotation. So we're going to go forward one rotation of the wheel, and I actually have it set to 75% of full power. So it's not at the top speed, but at a moderately good clip. Then what I want to do after we go forward for one rotation is let's do another movement. And for this one, we're going to go backwards for, instead of one rotation, let's pick 1 second. Okay? So we're going to go forwards for one rotation at 75%, and then let's go backward for 1 second, and maybe we'll slow it down a little bit and we'll make it 50%. Okay? So hook up your robot and download. Okay, so I've downloaded my program to the robot. One thing I never actually told you is which way is forward. I guess we can figure that out by running it. Let's give it a shot. Okay, you've got to admit that was pretty cool. Now let's try to make our program slightly more complicated. So let's just review. Our first block went forward for one rotation at 75% power. Our second block went backwards for 1 second at 50% power. Let's do some spinning. I'm going to grab another move brick, and I'm going to spin, let's spin leftish for, let's make it 1.5 rotations. And actually, with 1.5 rotations, we can say 1.5 rotations, or we could turn it into degrees and notice that the NXT software does the math for us. So 1.5 rotations is 540 degrees. And then after that, let's add another block. And let's spin to the right this time. And let's go for a whole second this time. Or maybe 1.25 seconds, just for fun. 1.25 seconds, just to show you can actually use decimals in there. And let's go at top speed and see what this thing can do. All right, so I'm going to download. Okay, downloaded. Let's see what happens. Now that we've seen a couple of examples using the move blocks, let's talk a little about their configuration panel. You adjust the amount of power that's sent to the motors with the power slider. This value represents the percentage of full power that's sent to the motors, so a power of 100 results in the robot moving at top speed. Obviously, a power level of 0 represents stop, but depending on what your robot looks like, your robot may not actually be able to start moving until the power is quite a bit higher than 0. You specify the direction that your robot should move by selecting either the forward or the backwards arrows. If you select the icon that looks like that do not enter sign, the robot will stop its motors. You can also adjust the robot's steering using the slider bar. When it's center, the robot drives relatively straight. Slide it to the left or right to command the robot to turn accordingly. There's actually 4 different choices you can make for the duration of your movement. That is, how long your movement lasts. The rotation option counts rotations of the orange part of the motor. It's okay to have a decimal number here. For example, I've specified that you should only go half a rotation in this example. If you prefer using whole numbers, you can specify your rotation in degrees. Remember that 360 degrees is one full rotation. So, for example, if you say 180 degrees is pictured here, you go half a rotation. You can also specify a number of seconds for your robot to move. Keep in mind that when you specify the duration in rotations or degrees, the robot will move roughly the same distance every time you run the program. But if you specify a length of time to move, the distance may vary somewhat depending on how fully charged your batteries are. There's also one more option called unlimited, and we'll talk more about this later.